Chapter 3751. Why aren't you panicking? Why don't you blame Zhu Wuxin? During that half a month, he made you betray venerable sovereign. How can you still be so calm? Yu Ji didn't understand why Yi Qing Luo was still putting on a calm and indifferent look. Wouldn't ordinary women fly into a rage out of humiliation when they hear such words that tarnish their reputations? Moreover, even a passerby like him knew how jealous Di Zun was. Why didn't venerable sovereign start a war with Zhu Wuxin out of anger? All of this was completely different from what he had planned. Hearing the urgency in Yu Ji's tone, Yi Qing Luo merely smiled calmly. I don't understand Zhu Wu Xian, but the only thing I can confirm is Zhu Wu Xian isn't that kind of person. She looked at Zhu Wuxin. He also caught the flash of panic in Zhu Wuxin's eyes. She curled her lips and smiled. I am indeed very angry that you trapped me for half a month and erased my memory. But, as for the other things, I believe you won't do them. If I really did it, what would you do? Zhu Wuxin countered with a question, his eyes full of seriousness. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she shook her head. You won't. Zhu Wuxin was not someone who would take advantage of others when they were down. If Zhu Wuxin was really that kind of person, he had many opportunities to forcefully take her away and engage in a torturous drama. However, Zhu Wuxin had never done so. He is only paranoid that she is his person. Other than stubbornly wanting to abide by the agreement from many years ago, he would never purposely cause her any trouble. Details tell a person's heart. Even if he did not understand Zhu Wuxin's character, Yi Qing Luo was certain that Zhu Wu Xian absolutely would not do anything to her. As for the disillusionment you mentioned before, I can only tell you that it doesn't exist. Yi Qing Luo looked at Yu Ji smilingly as her eyes were filled with ridicule. As for him using unscrupulous means for me, this can only mean that my charm is very big. You. Yu Ji trembled as he pointed at Yi Qing Luo, his face filled with disbelief. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Who would have thought that he would shout at the top of his voice and slander Zhu Wuxin? But it was totally unable to incite disharmony between Yi Qing Luo and Zhu Wu Xian's relationship. Instead, he had completely offended Zhu Wuxin. No, it was not just Zhu Wu Xian, and he had also offended that venerable sovereign with a sea of jealousy. If Di Zun and Zhu Wuxin made a move, he had no way out. Trash. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind Yu Ji. When Yu Ji heard this voice, his entire body stiffened and he straightened his body. This voice made Yi Qing Luo and the others' expressions congealed as their bodies tensed up. His body had instinctively entered a defensive state. It was that feeling again. It was a feeling of fear that made one's heart tremble. It was the powerful force that had almost taken her life. Yi Qing Luo's breathing instantly congealed as her body seemed to have a heavy pressure pressing down on her. At this moment, she felt a broad embrace behind her. The moment the pressure hit him, the elegant sandalwood fragrance had already dispelled all the negative effects. She arched herself into Dmo Xian's arms and her little hand clutched his robes as she lowered her voice. Ah Xian, it's that energy earlier. Dmo Xian's expression was also grave as he raised his eyes to look at Yu Ji's direction. Behind Yu Ji, a black figure flew over like a ghost. Chapter 3752. What made Yi Qing Luo most astonished was that man looked extremely young. At most, he looked around 24 or 25 years old. Just 24 or 25 years old and his ability was already so powerful? That man. Who on earth was he? Young lord. When Yu Ji saw that man, he started to tremble uncontrollably. He didn't even bother about the hand which was inserted into his chest as he knelt down on the ground and kowtowed with all his might. When his hand stretched out from the hole in his chest, immediately large amounts of blood started to gush out. The blood was like a blood fountain as it seeped out countless amounts of blood. Yu Ji could feel the blood flowing out from his body rapidly. The feeling of losing too much blood made him dizzy. But he didn't dare to move. Totally didn't dare to move. He could only allow the blood to flow out from his body, allowing the two blood fangs to suck the blood that seeped out from his body. Trash. That man stepped on the air like that, strolling leisurely as though he was in his own backyard. He stepped on the air as he walked step by step to Yuji's side. From the side, his cold and treacherous gaze was like a poisonous snake, coiling around Yuji. Yuji's body trembled even more as he stammered, young lord, I am only. It's just a small task and it forced you to use secluded palaces' forbidden art. If you're not trash, then what are you? The man laughed coldly as he interrupted Yuji's explanation. His smile was sinister. Yes. I am trash. Yuji didn't even dare to resist as his forehead heavily smashed onto the ground. Since you're trash, then you shouldn't stay in this world. The man's icy cold voice had no trace of emotions. Just as his words landed, Yuji gave a miserable ah as his body suddenly floated into the air. Immediately after, under everyone's gaze, his body exploded and turned into a blood mist as it floated in the air. The death of the host. The two enormous wild beasts also dissipated along with the wind. The entire auction finally became much more spacious. The disappearance of the monsters made the various powerhouses' cultivators whose hearts were hanging in suspense finally relaxed. All of them heaved a long sigh of relief. But everyone relaxed. Yiqing Luo only felt fear surging up her heart. To tell the truth, if it was her, she would never be like this man and kill Yuji so cleanly. After all, the purpose of secluded silence's existence was merely to provide blood for those two dark-type wild beasts. The two beasts were there. It was beneficial to the Dark Nether Palace. But the man didn't. The man didn't hesitate at all and killed Yuji so easily. This action could only mean two things. Firstly, the man only cared about acting cool and didn't think too much about it. Secondly, the reason for that was because the man's strength gave him absolute confidence that he would be able to destroy the auction without any external help. Yiqing Luo was more inclined towards the second option. That man had absolute strength and absolute confidence. The existence of Yuji and Shuya didn't matter. Just now, when the man made his move, she didn't even see the man's movements. This was enough to show the difference in strength between her and the man. Perhaps he felt the uneasiness in Yiqing Luo's heart. The arm around her waist tightened a little. She looked up and met the man's concerned gaze. He said nothing, but his eyes were full of concern for her. Yiqing Luo calmed herself down as she shook her head at him. Dmo Xian's fingers circled around her waist as he pacified her emotions. Their gazes met. Chapter 3753. Every step the man took. His surrounding energy made Yiqing Luo feel terror and danger. The man who was hugging her waist also increased the strength in his hands. Both arms brought her petite body into his chest, blocking the man's threatening force. Just as that man was about to get close, a remnant shadow flashed past. Zhu Wu Xian stood in front of Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. His tall and slender body blocked the man's footsteps. Young Patriarch Chu. The man smiled, his gaze was indifferent and his tone was so light that it made one's hair stand on end. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze met his, young Patriarch Yuzun. The man who was addressed as Yuzun's eyes were cold. Why, after not cooperating with Nether Palace, you intend to become enemies with Nether Palace? Zhu Wu Xian was expressionless. Dragon's reverse scale. Those who touch it shall be killed. Reverse scale? Yuzun's brows rose as his gaze went past Zhu Wu Xian and landed on Yiqing Luo. Just a casual glance. As though he had seen some ant dregs. He then shifted his gaze away and sneered, her? Zhu Wu Xian didn't reply. Only frowning his cold brows as his icy cold eyes faintly shone with a sinister chill. Ha! Ha ha ha! Yuzun laughed out loudly as the gaze he gave Zhu Wu Xian was filled with ridicule. Not long ago, the high and mighty young Patriarch Chu actually fell in love with a lady. He laughed. On that handsome face, that pair of sinister and treacherous eyes was suffused with a hair-raising cold glint. He was laughing. Zhu Wu Xian was still expressionless. Yuzun was laughing and laughing when he suddenly stopped. He raised his hand and placed it on Zhu Wu Xian's shoulder. Young Patriarch Chu, previously we got along rather well, I don't want to fight with you. Zhu Wu Xian glanced at the hand on his shoulder. His slightly creased brows were tainted with a sliver of disgust. He turned his head slightly and a burst of profound energy pushed the hand on his shoulder down. His body was still standing on the original spot. Yuzun's expression gradually turned cold. Looks like you've made up your mind to become enemies with Nether Palace. Zhu Wu Xian still didn't say a word. He only slowly took a step back as his arms slowly raised up. An electric current coursed through his palm. Then, a silver spear appeared in his hand. The entire body of the silver spear was emitting a silver light, and there was also lightning lingering around it. The totem on the silver spear was extremely complicated, and it was mixed with a strange aura. A powerful air current started to wreak havoc as Zhu Wu Xian's weapon appeared. All right. Good. Very good. Yuzun's eyes darkened, and the treachery in his eyes deepened. If not for foster father's obstruction, would have long wanted to fight with you. This opportunity is great. He leapt up and his profound energy soared to the sky like a hot knife through butter, exploding with a loud bang. The sound shook the surroundings, causing the earth and mountains to shake and sway endlessly. Two figures quickly intertwined with each other. The surrounding people were all forced to take a few steps back by these two powerful forces. Wait, suddenly, just as the two forces were about to collide. A light and indifferent voice broke the current atmosphere. The two of them looked in the direction of the voice. Amidst the surging energy, a purple figure slowly walked over. Along with that person walking over, the surging profound energy in the surroundings was like a mouse seeing a cat, and it actually obediently calmed down. The man looked like he was strolling in his own garden. Dizun. Chapter 3754. Dmo Xian slowly walked to Zhu Wu Xian's side. He raised his hand. Like drifting clouds, his sleeves fluttered. The aura between the Dark Lord and Zhu Wuxin vanished in an instant. Dmo Xian shot a glance at Zhu Wu Xian as he waved his hand, make way. Zhu Wu Xian didn't move as his cold face and eyes turned icy cold. Lil Luo, is this Lord's future wife, so there's no need to trouble young Master Zhu to protect Lil Luo. Dmo Xian spoke calmly but his tone was filled with pressing pressure. Zhu Wu Xian's body sunk slightly, as though his back was crushed by something invisible. But he still didn't move his feet. Only facing Dmo Xian's gaze, he said word by word, I want to protect her, it has nothing to do with anyone else. This Lord's wife doesn't need an outsider to protect her. Dmo Xian's eyes sunk when he heard that. His sleeves moved and an invisible force swept Zhu Wu Xian's body up, throwing him directly into the black-robed man's battlefield. Just as he was about to smash into the black-robed man, Zhu Wu Xian's body jolted as he shook off the profound energy which entangled him. Following that, he slammed his palm on the ground as he bounced up. He quickly stabilized his figure as he looked at Dmo Xian with an icy cold expression. Since you want to help Lil Luo, so much, then help her protect these people whom she wants to protect. Dmo Xian's lips curled into an evil smile as his tone was light, as though he was ridiculing Zhu Wu Xian. You. The Nether Prime, who had been silently watching the two of them interact, slowly spat out a word. He looked at Dmo Xian in puzzlement and looked at Zhu Wu Xian, he. Immediately following that, his lips curled into a deep evil smile. This makes me curious, what kind of woman is she, to actually make Dmo and young Patriarch Chu so infatuated with her? Yuzun laughed evilly. That pair of treacherous cold eyes went past Dmo Xian and looked at that petite figure behind him. The current Yi Qing Luo was standing in the safe zone as she looked at the situation on their side without blinking. Dmo Xian had conjured an enchantment around her, helping her to block that powerful and mysterious man called Yuzun's aura. Noticing Yuzun's gaze, Yi Qing Luo's brows creased. A chill of fear rose in his heart for no reason. She pressed on her heart and suppressed the uneasiness in her heart. Her mind was filled with the words that Dmo Xian had whispered into her ear when he was setting up the barrier earlier. He is an old friend of mine. An old friend. What kind of old friend was it? Yi Qing Luo didn't delve deeper into it and didn't question further. To be called an old friend by Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo had only met Bai Su. Yuzun was the second. Apparently, Bai Su was an old acquaintance of his and had a good relationship with him. But, the Dark Lord was different. From his reaction and gaze when he saw Dmo Xian, Yi Qing Luo could conclude that the relationship between these two was not harmonious. It could even be described as tense. Take your eyes back. Dmo Xian's body moved slightly and blocked Yu Prime's vision. This sovereign is very easily jealous, so. This sovereign's woman, you'd better not look too much. Heh. Ha 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 ha. Yuzun was tickled by Dmo Xian's words as a horrifying laughter burst out from his throat. Chapter 3755. Dmo Xian's eyes turned colder by the minute. Yuzun's laughter stopped as he shook his head. All right, I won't say any more. His words had just ended when he suddenly pointed at Dmo Xian. The smile on his face was instantly replaced by a sinister chill. He pointed at Dmo Xian as he spoke sternly, the current you. I really look down on you. Following his words, the sky full of profound energy interweaved as terrifying profound rays were released from his entire body. The huge force was like a raging gale. Numerous cultivators had their hearts crushed under this force as they vomited blood and died. Especially those cultivators who joined the secluded palace, those who were closest to them were almost annihilated. Under this force, Dmo Xian's robe was fluttering in the wind. But he still didn't move an inch. As though a towering mountain was standing there. Yi Qing Luo's heart was tightly gripped as though it was about to jump out from her throat. Ah! Help! More and more painful cries rang beside her ears. Another large batch of cultivators from various powerhouses fell. Even Zhou Mo, Mao Mao and the others were affected. She pursed her lips as her brows creased tightly. This couldn't go on. If all the people here died in the auction, they would all die. No matter what the reason was for Yuzun's appearance. Anyway, Secluded Palace's motive had been achieved. Various powerhouses' elites had suffered heavy losses. If Secluded Palace took the opportunity to attack the Earth domain, Secluded Palace's power would expand accordingly. But this kind of anxiety, Yi Qing Luo could not reveal it. Although Yi Qing Luo wasn't able to sense the confrontation between Dmo Xian and Yuzun, but she knew how dangerous it was. Especially now Dmo Xian's body was injured in the spirit-devouring array. If Dmo Xian cared about other people's lives, this would only distract Dmo Xian and he wouldn't be able to go all out. She didn't want to see Dmo Xian getting injured again. Perhaps the young lady's inner struggle and worry was transmitted to Dmo Xian. Or perhaps he had seen through Yuzun's motive. Just as both parties' forces collided, Dmo Xian's sleeves suddenly moved. A shapeless air wave enveloped the entire auction. If you want to fight, this lord will accompany you. Dmo Xian's lips rose, then let's fight. The figures of him and Yuzun disappeared in the air wave. Even the air waves that lingered around the auction completely disappeared. Ah Xian. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted as her heart sank. She patted the barrier of the enchantment. Xian. Ah Xian. Where did Xian go? Why did it suddenly disappear? She hammered the barrier. He was eager to rush out of the barrier. However, the moment she raised her hand and hammered again, like water, the barrier suddenly disintegrated. This made Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was being strangled by something, as the anxious and worried emotions invaded her body and mind. "Lass, don't worry." Old Man Sung's voice came from his mind. Dizun only used the divine consciousness space to suck him, and that man called Yuzun into the divine consciousness space to fight. Divine awareness space? Was it similar to the space where she had entered the Azure Dew bracelet? Something like that. Old Man Sung explained, Dizun should be clear that if they were to start a battle in the auction, based on their ability, they would definitely destroy the entire auction. Not only the people in the auction's array would die, the entire Earth boundary would not be spared. So Dizun thought of this idea. Entering the divine consciousness space to fight, no matter how ferocious the battle was, it would not affect everyone. Chapter 3756. Old Man Sung was silent for a moment. But he knew Yiqing Luo's character very well. If he didn't answer, it would only make her more worried. He sighed and said, "If the venerable sovereign is injured, his divine consciousness will also suffer great damage." Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened as she looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian had disappeared in astonishment. But, with venerable sovereign's strength, he won't allow himself to be injured. Old Man Sung looked at Yiqing Luo's look and sighed helplessly. Didn't the Overlord say that for you, he will let himself get hurt? Since he chose to do this, he must have full confidence. If he hadn't reached the spirit-devouring formation and was me, then he wouldn't be like this. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as her eyes turned slightly red. There seemed to be something pressing down on her heart. It was very, very heavy. She could hardly breathe under the pressure. Little girl. Old Man Sung didn't know how to comfort her. Suddenly, an ice-cold voice sounded. He didn't remove the barrier before he left just to let you be sad here. That voice was cold and indifferent. But it was like a sharp blade, fiercely stabbing into Yiqing Luo's eardrums. She suddenly raised her head and looked in the direction of the voice. Zhu Wuxin walked over expressionlessly. You can't participate in their battle and can't help much. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened as her face turned pale. She pursed her lips and lowered her eyes. She knew, with her strength, she was totally unable to take part in the battle between Dmo Xian and Lord Yu. If she was worried about Dmo Xian and forcefully joined their battle, he would only be a burden. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's petite body started to tremble uncontrollably. She clenched her fists and her eyes reddened. Not enough, she was too weak. If she continued like this, when would she be able to walk side by side with Xian? When exactly would she be able to become even stronger? Why was she so weak? Yiqing Luo asked herself over and over again, sentence by sentence. It was as if he was possessed. The shadow and darkness in his heart were expanding infinitely. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's wrist tightened. A sharp pain came. Her consciousness cleared up a little. Before she could react, her delicate body suddenly leaned forward, and her entire body fell into a cold but wide embrace. Yiqing Luo was stunned and wanted to struggle. However, the man's cold voice drifted into her ears. During the first half a month in the land, I hugged you and took care of you like this every day. Are you not used to it? Yiqing Luo's petite body suddenly stiffened. Are you angry? Disappointed? You don't think you should trust me, right? Feeling the reaction of the person in his arms, Zhu Wuxin sneered. Unfortunately, you trust me so much that you think I won't do anything to you. He lowered his head and his breath got closer to her. Yiqing Luo, don't you understand men? Would a normal man be indifferent to a woman that he has been thinking about for so long? His approach made Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. Yiqing Luo's body shifted slightly as she avoided Zhu Wuxian's approach. However, his arm was still tightly gripping her wrist. It was very painful, but Zhu Wuxin did not intend to let go. Chapter 3757. Chu Wuxian's lips curled upwards slightly, and under that grave and stern face, it revealed some evilness. Yiqing Luo's gaze turned slightly chilly as her tone turned chilly. Don't use this kind of childish tricks to sow discord between Xian and me. Don't belittle a man's jealousy. Chu Wuxian saw that she wasn't as flustered and exasperated as he had imagined, nor was there any trace of flustered look. His brows unknowingly creased. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as the chill in her eyes deepened. Chu Wuxian, don't turn yourself into a look that even you hate. Her words made Chu Wuxian's expression retract bit by bit. Yiqing Luo took a faint glance at him as she started walking towards the direction of the battlefield. Chu Wuxian was right about one thing. Before Xian entered the soul consciousness space, he specially released her barrier, not just to let her inner demons enter her body, to make her feel sorry for herself. Xian knew that she couldn't possibly stand at a safe place and watch the battle between the various powerhouses and Nether Palace. Thinking of this, the resolute glint in Yiqing Luo's eyes turned even brighter. Xian was still fighting with his injuries, to stop Nether Palace's plans and actions. She couldn't sit here and wait for death. At least, these black-robed men in front of her must be dealt with. Furthermore, there was no time to lose. Even for her, in this array which was enveloped by the black sinister qi, she would be caught by the inner demons, almost losing control and being devoured by the inner demons. Not to mention the other cultivators. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of the black-robed men as her eyes squinted, sinister and treacherous. Just as she was about to leap over to the black-robed men's side. Behind her, Chu Wuxian's voice rang, Yiqing Luo. She didn't turn back. Chu Wuxian had already quickened his pace as he teleported in front of her. Yiqing Luo raised her head to look at him. His brows creased as he looked at Yiqing Luo without blinking. What did you mean by that sentence earlier? Yiqing Luo hadn't reacted in time. What you said earlier. Chu Wuxian, you said, don't turn yourself into a look that even you hate. What makes you think that I will hate that kind of self? Yiqing Luo looked at him quietly. His eyes were calm and cold, without any ripples. A moment later, she opened her pink lips and said indifferently, Zhu Wuxian, what I said to you came from my heart. Zhu Wuxin was not someone who would take advantage of others when they were down. His pride would not allow him to do anything to her in that situation. Chu Wuxin's words were just to stab her. However, even he himself would find it hard to accept such a method. He had never been one to use words to provoke or hurt others. Even he hated himself for being like this. Yiqing Luo took a deep look at him and didn't say another word. Shortly after, he directly passed him and leaped up onto Shiju's back. Then, he summoned the Azure Dragon and charged into the black-robed people. Until Yiqing Luo had walked far away. Chu Wuxin was still rooted to the spot. His body was stiff like a stone statue. What did he say to Yu? In his mind, the girl's sweet and firm voice seemed to ring. I don't understand Zhu Wuxian, but the only thing I can be sure of is that Zhu Wuxian is not that kind of person. What if I really do it? You won't. That firmness, that straightforwardness, that kind of trust. Zhu Wuxian's stiff hand slowly lifted up and pressed on his chest. An indescribable joy started to spread in his heart. After a long, long time. His lips curled as he laughed softly. Chapter 3758. The Other Side. After Yiqing Luo joined the battle, she brought along Shiju and Azure Dragon, totally oppressing those black-robed men one by one, as though they were dregs. The three underworlds were all dead. Pharaoh Crane was also dead. The black-robed men of the Netherworld Palace had no one to command. As for the profound practitioners who joined the Nether Palace, when the Nether Prime released his profound energy, a large number of them were killed by the shockwave. Those profound practitioners who were struggling at death's door right now wouldn't amount to anything. Those profound practitioners wanted to beg for mercy. Too late for regrets. But there was no room for regret. They had been imprinted with the mark of the abyss. If he had any thoughts of betraying the palace of darkness, he would explode and turn into a bloody mist. It was because they were afraid of death that they chose to join the palace of gloomy darkness. At the same time, Yiqing Luo brought Azure Dragon and charged into the black-robed men, starting the battle. The surviving profound practitioners of the major forces had yet to recover from their daze. They looked in shock at the direction where Dmo Xian had disappeared, and looked at the red-robed young lady who was protected by the green dragon's huge body. Executive Elder A's face turned pale. His lips trembled as he spat out a few words. Did we hear it wrong? Just now, that purple-clothed man, that's His Majesty? Executive Lao Yi asked. The cultivators from the other powers were shaking their heads in disbelief. Dizun, that man, was the overlord? The Dizun, who had disappeared for a long time, had actually appeared in the land. Overlord. Di Luo. Yiqing Luo. City Lord Lu muttered these few names softly, as though he suddenly understood something. She said she's called Di Luo, and wasn't lying to us. She merely took her husband's surname. Taking her husband's surname? When everyone heard these 3 words, they were stunned. Take her husband's surname, in other words, that woman named Yiqing Luo was the overlord's wife, the imperial madam? How dare they question Lady Di? Everyone looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. He was also very curious. Why, ever since Di Zun stepped into the auction? Why didn't they notice the overlord's presence? They knew very well in their hearts. It was definitely not because they were fighting with the Palace of Darkness and did not notice the overlord. At that time, His Majesty seemed to be shrouded in a layer of grey mist, making it impossible to see his face clearly. It was as if it was completely inconspicuous. However, just as the overlord dispersed the mist and walked towards the man called Yuzun, all eyes were on the overlord. Brother Qiao, Pei Xing's dark golden eyes widened as he looked at the figure among the black-robed men. He was shocked. Is she really the wife of His Majesty? At this moment, Pei Xing was shocked. It looked a little like the shy young man who didn't have golden eyes. Qiao Yinyan did not speak. His expression congealed as he stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo's direction. In his deep eyes, there seemed to be a whirlpool surging. His energy surged. His silver hair was blown into a mess by the wind, and it hid his face. Brother Qiao? Pei Xing nudged Qiao Yinyan when he didn't reply. Qiao Yinyan's eyelashes fluttered as he lowered his eyes and met Pei Xing's dark golden eyes. His expression sunk slightly as he opened his mouth. What are you still in a daze for? Letting Luo fight alone? Chapter 3759. Pei Xing scratched his head, feeling that Qiao Yinyan's reaction was a little strange. Suddenly, a slap landed on the back of his head. Old Lai snorted, just a blockhead like you, what can you understand? Hurry up and go over to help, what a waste of the energy that you had just ignited. After saying that, he leaped into the air, stepped on Pei Xing's shoulder, and charged into the battlefield. Pei Xing was dumbstruck from being stepped on. But, seeing the both of them fighting on the battlefield, scratching the back of his head, he also charged in. The 3 of them made the various powerhouses' cultivators react to the shock. They didn't hesitate any further as they swiftly charged into the battlefield. There weren't many dead corpse puppets on the Nether Palace's side. To be able to persist till now, was merely because of their undying and indestructible physique. Even if the various powerhouses' cultivators suffered heavy losses. But in terms of quantity, they still suppressed the Nether Palace by a large margin. A bunch of cultivators joined in. This instantly increased the pressure on the black-robed men's side, as the number of people who fell became more and more. Yiqing Luo was extremely glad that Lord Yu thought highly of himself. He was too blindly confident. He killed Yu Ji. Only then did they have a chance to catch their breath. Without the help of those heaven-defying monsters. This bunch of black-robed dead corpse puppets, no matter how undying and indestructible physique, they couldn't withstand the bombardment and encirclement of many cultivators. Especially with Yi Qing Luo's glower flame fan, Shi Ju, and an azure dragon. This combination made their physique totally useless. The battlefield gradually regained its tranquility. The black-robed men all fell onto the ground, no longer reviving, no longer climbing up. Those cultivators who joined the Nether Palace stained the ground with their blood. Various powerhouses cultivators panted heavily as they looked at the blood-stained scene in front of them, feeling complicated. Yi Qing Luo returned to the ground. Looking at the battlefield which had been settled, she heaved a sigh of relief. She hugged Shi Ju, which had transformed into a leopard, into her arms. Imperial Madam, we've finally settled these monsters, what should we do next? Executive Elder's attitude towards Yi Qing Luo was much more respectful. Hearing Executive Elder's question, everyone's gazes immediately turned over. These Nether Palace monsters have been settled. But how do we walk out of the auction? If we continue to be trapped here, we will die sooner or later. Furthermore, have you guys noticed that the Yin energy around us is getting thicker and thicker? I feel like I'm even breathing in a mouthful of cold air. Everyone was flustered. But due to Yi Qing Luo's status, they only dared to complain in a low voice. Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept across the surroundings. Indeed, the yin qi here was getting thicker and thicker. This meant that the formation was assimilating into the auction. If he didn't think of a way to leave the auction, he would be dead. It was very likely that they would not be able to control their inner demons. In the end, they would kill each other and die miserably here. So, even if they killed all the monsters from the Palace of Darkness, it would be useless. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes. In his mind, he pictured the terrain of the auction, trying to determine the location of the formation core set up by the gloomy palace. As long as there was an opportunity to break the formation, he would definitely be able to break through this formation. After closing his eyes, his other senses would become extremely clear. Yi Qing Luo's ears suddenly twitched. She swiftly opened her eyes as her gaze fell onto the ground. What's the matter? Executive Elder was shocked by Yi Qing Luo's sudden action. Chapter 3760. What's that? When the crowd heard that, they looked towards the ground in panic. Just when everyone placed their senses on the ground, the crowd then felt it clearly. There seemed to be something on the ground, which was surging towards their direction at high speed. That's right. It was the feeling and sound from the ground. Everyone's expression changed greatly, as they stared at the ground in alarm and worry. Afraid that the ground would suddenly surge out, like those monsters earlier, a monster that they couldn't deal with. Hiss hiss, rustle, just as the crowd held their breaths and were alerted. A burst of sound of something rubbing against the ground was heard. Quick, look over there. Among the crowd, someone pointed to the front and shouted loudly. The crowd looked towards the direction of the voice. Then they saw that blood-stained ground. There were some densely packed black things, crawling quickly. The crowd also noticed it. Those densely packed things were all things that crawled out from the dead corpse puppets' bodies. One after another. One after another. Like a patch of black sesame, densely spread out in front of their eyes. The crowd instantly felt their scalps turning numb. What are those things? Madam D, what are those? Why are they crawling out from those monsters' bodies? Those things. What are they trying to do? How should we deal with them? The crowd panicked as they anxiously asked Yi Qing Luo. When they saw that patch of densely packed black things, even Yi Qing Luo felt goosebumps all over her body. What were those things? Even if they asked her, she didn't know. Previously, when they crossed hands with this bunch of dead corpse puppets, other than the dead corpse puppets oozing out yin qi, there was no such situation. Although she couldn't guess what those black things were. But Yi Qing Luo was certain. Those things were absolutely not any weaker than that white teeth, blood teeth. Furthermore, these things were even scarier. That is, corpse puppet goo. The green dragon seemed to have recognized those things, as its whiskers floated up. Its body suddenly made a turn. It spat out a burst of dragon's breath, as it blew those black things which were nearing quickly, back. The dragon's breath swept up the wind, covering the sky and covering the earth, densely packed black things, densely laid out in front of them. Then it landed on the ground, and speedily rushed towards their direction. When the azure dragon was blowing his dragon breath, Yi Qing Luo finally saw the ground clearly. What exactly were those densely packed things? They were black bugs about the size of a fingernail, one on top of the other. Densely packed together, they spread out. Corpse puppet parasite? Yi Qing Luo repeated the name that azure dragon said. Parasite? That bug is a goo? The green dragon speedily swept up Yi Qing Luo as she floated up into mid-air. What exactly is the corpse puppet parasite? This was the first time Yi Qing Luo had seen the azure dragon having such a reaction towards a species. Azure dragon had a headache. The corpse puppet goo is a very evil goo technique. Those who create this goo technique are basically witchcraft masters. I'm afraid the Dark Palace is purposely using these corpse puppet goo to destroy the entire land. Yi Qing Luo found out from the green dragon's mouth. The corpse puppet goo was a goo that was raised in corpses since young. It needed all kinds of corpses as fodder, and after being irrigated with fresh blood, the goo worms would be nurtured. This kind of insidious goo worm, don't look down on its small size. Chapter 3761. Because, this goo worm could eat a person's heart and burrow into the heart to control the person's body. As long as that person's body hasn't decayed. The goo worms could control the body and use that person's identity to live. Most importantly, this kind of goo was not easy to discover. Even if ordinary goo masters came, they would not be able to find any traces of the corpse puppet goo. Even if they found out, they wouldn't be able to deal with them. For example, the things inside the ngoo incense could not suppress the corpse puppet goo at all. Such a sinister and terrifying corpse puppet goo, generally speaking, being able to nurture 10 out of 10,000 goo worms was already considered very successful. But now, Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she scanned the densely packed scene below her. There were at least tens of thousands of corpse puppet goo here. Why are there so many corpse puppet goo? No. Yi Qing Luo sat on the green dragon's head as she looked at the pitch black below. These corpse puppet parasites had escaped from the corpse puppet parasite's body, and that means that the corpse puppet parasites were arranged by the Palace of Darkness. If the corpse puppet parasites and 3 nether failed, these corpse puppet parasites would replace them to complete the following mission. So many corpse puppet goo. The surviving profound practitioners of the major forces in the auction would become food for the corpse puppet goo. The goal of the Dark Nether Palace would be achieved. More importantly, at least tens of thousands of corpse puppet goo were released. There was no way to take it back. By the time the corpse puppet goo had devoured all the profound practitioners of the major forces in the auction, it was very likely that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would remove the barrier of the auction. At that time, the corpse puppet goo were moving around everywhere in the land domain. The entire land, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Azure Dragon, is there any way to deal with the corpse puppet parasite? Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she asked. The azure dragon spat out a dragon's breath. No. Yi Qing Luo looked down and her eyes suddenly froze. She placed Shiju on the azure dragon's back and immediately leapt up, diving down from the azure dragon's back. Be careful. Her fingertips moved and the glowing flame fan opened up. Strong profound energy turned into a hurricane as it swept downwards. Boom! The dark force hit the ground and created a strong wind. Just in time to block the large group of corpse puppet goo that was charging up. The executive elder was so shocked that he took a step back. Qiao Yimian and Pei Xing also reacted quickly. They grabbed the executive elder's shoulders and pulled him back. The corpse puppet goo's attack was blocked. However, before the executive elder could heave a sigh of relief, that densely packed stretch of them had already knocked away the strong wind which I Ching Luo had created earlier, as they swarmed over once again. Ah! There were a few profound practitioners who were too slow in retreating. A corpse puppet goo climbed onto his body. Subsequently, the dense mass of corpse puppet parasites swallowed that profounder. Not even his bones were left. The corpse puppet goo was very fast. They were densely packed and swarmed together, leaving no gaps at all. This was especially true for the profound practitioners. As long as they were touched, the corpse puppet parasites would quickly crawl all over their bodies and devour them in an instant. Even their souls would be devoured. The profound practitioners of the various great powers were stupefied. One by one, they screamed, turned around, and ran. I Ching Luo landed next to Pei Sheng and the others, as she flipped her hand and swept up a hurricane, once again obstructing those corpse puppet parasites which were surging towards them. Chapter 3762. The speed of the cultivators from the major forces could not match up to the zombies. Seeing that I Ching Luo was safe, they immediately rushed towards the direction of I Ching Luo and the rest. Countless corpse puppet goo followed closely behind. From all directions, the densely packed corpse puppet goo swarmed towards the group. Don't come over. Don't come over. The executive elder's expression changed when he saw that. More and more zombies started to surround them. The wind created by the few of them could not withstand the invasion of thousands of zombies. No, if this goes on, we will all be devoured. Qiao Yinyan frowned slightly. Pei Sheng looked at the green dragon hovering in midair. Luo, let the green dragon bring you away first. You will only be waiting for death if you stay. This place has been set up by the secluded palace. Unless we find a way to break the array, none of us can leave here. After I Ching Luo finished her sentence, she looked at Pei Sheng. Moreover, I will not leave you all in danger and leave alone. I Ching Luo waved her glower flame fan. A violent burst of profound energy shot out, instantly covering those zombies. A large number of zombies collided and squeezed in the dazzling red light. I Ching Luo's fingertip moved. She injected another burst of profound energy. Those zombies that were covered were instantly shattered by the profound energy. A large wave of corpse puppet goo exploded into pieces. But dealing with this wave of zombies was of no use at all. There was still an endless stretch of zombies behind. These worms are so disgusting. Kitty Lee's face was filled with unbearable expression. Her little claws kept scratching her body. Even her hair was standing on end. Zhou Mo held her in his arms, stroked her little head and comforted her. It's all right, I will protect you. His words were gentle, but the expression on his face was extremely cold. Ah Wu. Zhou Mo stroked Kitty Lee's fur while looking at the expressionless Gue Wu. Do you have any way to deal with this damn thing? Yes. Gue Wu lightly spat out a word. Zhou Mo's eyes lit up and was about to ask what was the solution. But he heard Gue Wu lightly spitting out the next sentence. There's no way here. Zhou Mo understood Gue Wu's meaning. In this place, the auction was trapped by the array. Even if he had a way, he couldn't use it. Stop these corpse puppet goo from approaching first. Reduce the number of deaths. I Ching Luo also understood their conversation. Before there was no other way. He could only choose to stop it. The more people died, the worse it would be for them. Shrugging his shoulders, Zhou Mo shot a glance at Gue Wu. Both of them exerted their strength at the same time. Their Xian Qi exploded and charged forward. Pei Sheng and the others quickly joined the interdiction team. Wave after wave of corpse puppet goo were torn apart. But soon after wave of corpse puppet goo came. This caused everyone's scalps to go numb, and a wave of despair instantly assaulted them. Calm down. If we lose our footing, we will give those bugs a chance. The executive elder shouted at the top of his lungs, "Do you see Madam D, young Master Chiao and young Master Pei? Do you see those people? Everyone unite. These insects aren't like the monsters from before that can counter our attacks." The profound practitioners of the major forces were originally a little afraid. But as the number of corpse puppet goo increased, the surging also became more and more intense. Xiao Yimian and the others couldn't take care of everyone. Chapter 3763. Various powerhouses cultivators joined in. This didn't make Yi Qing Luo and the rest feel relaxed. The corpse puppet goo swarmed over in an overwhelming manner. It was as if a layer of black carpet had been laid out for the entire auction. Yi Qing Luo's trypophobia was about to act up. They couldn't stop to rest. If they were not careful, they would be swallowed by the corpse puppet goo. No one was willing to take their own lives as a joke. All of them gathered their attention to stop the corpse puppet goo. Yi Qing Luo's actions had almost become her body's instinct. She pursed her lips tightly as her vision swept across the surroundings. She wanted to find the Wu Gu master behind the scenes who was controlling these corpse puppet goo. But her perceptive ability couldn't sense any other aura in the surroundings at all. If this went on, everyone would either be swallowed by the corpse puppet goo or die of exhaustion of profound energy. After going through one battle after another, all the profound practitioners' minds and bodies were exhausted to the extreme. Now they were fighting with a bunch of worms. Almost everyone had started to feel numb. Thinking of the conversation between Zhou Mo and Gue Wu earlier, Yi Qing Luo suddenly raised her profound energy and increased her strength as she struck the incoming corpse puppet goo flying. Her figure flashed as she appeared in the direction of the ghost martial artist. She just moved, which revealed a gap. The wave of corpse puppet goo which Yi Qing Luo struck had exploded for just a moment. The corpse puppet goo at the back had already taken the opportunity to attack this gap. Roar! Shiju growled as it pounced down from the green dragon's back, replacing Yi Qing Luo's position earlier. Its claw came down. It carried the might of the dragon clan and mirage beast. It turned into a stream of chi waves as it tore those corpse puppet goo apart. The green dragon let out a low growl as it bent down. The dragon's breath spewed out as it rolled up the might of a sacred beast. Yi Qing Luo nodded towards the two battle pets and looked at Gue Wu as she asked, "Master Gue Wu, you said there is a way to deal with these corpse puppet goo, what is it?" "Settle the Wu Gu master." Gue Wu replied. Yi Qing Luo replied, "Wu Gu master. I didn't sense anyone else's presence in the auction. Is the Wu Gu master here?" A big shot like Gue Wu, his perceptive ability was definitely above hers. "Not here." Gue Wu replied straightforwardly, causing Yi Qing Luo's hope to be extinguished. But what made Yi Qing Luo curious was the Wu Gu master was not in the auction. Then, how did these corpse puppet goo hide in the bodies of the corpse puppets, and why did they only start to move now? And most importantly, these corpse goo swarmed in wave after wave. It seemed like there was no order. But from the process of fighting against these corpse puppet goo and stopping them, Zhang Xian didn't know how to deal with them. These corpse puppet goo. These corpse puppet goo were orderly as they carried out their tasks. Without the control of a Wu Gu master, how did these corpse puppet goo attack in such an orderly manner? Little Qing Luo, you'd better not think about such a complicated matter. No matter how much you think, you won't be able to get the answer. Zhou Mo also leaned over as his narrow phoenix eyes shot a glance at Yi Qing Luo and continued, "Actually, there are many ways to deal with the corpse puppet goo, but we're trapped in this array, so no matter how many ways there are, we won't be able to test it out." Yi Qing Luo asked, "What are the methods you mentioned?" Yi Qing Luo's words had just landed. Chapter 3764. What happened? The duo's reaction made Yi Qing Luo look over in alarm. The ground that was originally covered with corpse puppet goo rose up like a small hill. It was more like something was about to break out of the ground. The corpse puppet Gu avoided that arched hill because of the changes in the ground. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted abruptly. Something is approaching us from the ground. Could it be a new plan of the Palace of Darkness? Not necessarily. Gue Wu indifferently replied, it could also be a helper. Helpers? Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but twitched her lips in ridicule. Under such circumstances, would we still have helpers? Was he referring to the Emperor of the Earth Domain? Or Historian of Balance? Or someone from the upper realm? Yi Qing Luo's tone was filled with ridicule. The Linggui Marshal General looked at her. You seem to be very hostile towards the forces of the upper realm? It's not hostility. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched as a smile surfaced in her eyes. It's just that I'm simply unable to agree with their actions of not taking responsibility for their high positions. He met the Historian of Balance in the Nirvana realm. Yi Qing Luo didn't have any good impression of the Balance Historian. Their existence was said to restrict the balance of the major realms. But what really happened, Master? Indeed, they did not see anyone for a long time. Yi Qing Luo had some doubts. The person behind the gloomy palace was actually the master of the so-called Balance Historian and the so-called Heavenly Tao, right? Even an invisible person like her could see through the goal of gloomy palace. She didn't believe it. The so-called heavenly axiom and those in power in the upper realm would not notice these little tricks. However, the Nirvana realm was almost destroyed, and no one cared. The Earth domain was also in imminent danger. Still, no one showed any interest. It was ridiculous, right? When Gue Wu heard Yi Qing Luo's words, the ridiculing expression on his face became even more obvious. He furrowed his brows. There are a lot of things that can affect everything if you pull one hair. It's not that the people of the upper realm are unwilling to get involved, it's just that things are too complicated. At this point, his voice paused and his brows furrowed even more. He did not continue speaking and continued to organize those corpse puppet Gu. Yi Qing Luo didn't pursue further. However, there was a question in his heart. Gue Wu had always been a person of few words. Apart from martial arts, there was nothing else that could interest him. Just now, such a person wanted to explain to her about her misunderstanding of the people in the upper realm. Could it be, wasn't Gue Wu also a member of the Balance Historian? Or, one of the powers in power in the upper realm? Ka-cha, suddenly, the sound of the ground exploding interrupted Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. A crack slowly appeared on the small hill on the ground, and it tore apart towards both sides. Hiss, hiss, the corpse puppet Gu that was crawling on the ground suddenly seemed to have lost its target. It began to crawl around randomly. Many corpse puppet Gu smelled the blood on the ground and pounced over, devouring the corpses on the ground. At once, all the corpse puppet Gu fell into chaos. It was originally a neat, orderly, and densely packed mass. Now, there was no order to it, and it was running all over the place, at this moment. The arched ground began to shake and the mountains began to shake. More and more things surged up from the ground. From the crack, a huge black shadow suddenly scurried out. Following that, everyone saw something long sweeping past their eyes. All the corpse puppet Gus surrounding the crack, they disappeared in a split second. Chapter 3765. That's right. It had been swallowed. What was this thing? It even dared to swallow the corpse puppet Gu. Yi Qing Luo immediately looked over. She saw a huge mouth in front of her. His mouth was wide open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth that looked like sharp blades. Opening its mouth, closing it. As though it could bite through everything in the world. Yi Qing Luo's pupils shrank. Strange. Strange beast? This thing with only one mouth, wasn't it the one she saw in the Nirvana realm when she participated in the Academy's competition? Strange beast? Similar to a mutated dragon, it could change into something according to the surrounding environment. Strange beast? There was such a thing in the Earth realm? Hey, female hero, we meet again. That huge mouth opened wide towards Yi Qing Luo, as he sniggered out. The breath it exhaled was very fishy. His red tongue kept swaying back and forth. Yi Qing Luo. All right, this mutated beast was the same mutated beast that she had met in the Nirvana realm. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. Why are you here? While she was asking, another corpse puppet goo rushed over. Yi Qing Luo was about to release her profound energy. The mutated beast swiped its tongue and swept those corpse puppet goo into its stomach. It chewed a few times with a crunching sound. Inside its bloody mouth, black bugs were surging out in a dense manner. Then, the strange beast swallowed the corpse puppet goo. Just like that, it swallowed it. Yi Qing Luo, who witnessed this scene, was dumbfounded. Didn't this thing like to eat meat? Now it even ate worms? How hungry was this child? After swallowing the corpse puppet goo, the strange beast's tongue swept its sharp teeth and grinned at Yi Qing Luo. Female hero, the omnipotent ball is here to save you. Yi Qing Luo felt that the bloody mouth, after swallowing the corpse puppet goo, became even more smelly. It was so smelly that she wanted to hammer it to shut its mouth. In fact, Yi Qing Luo really did that. She leaped up and stepped on the strange beast's bald, slippery head. With this one step, Yi Qing Luo had obviously stepped into its bloody mouth. Why have you come to the Earth domain? What are you doing here? Yi Qing Luo kicked its head. Answer properly, I don't have time to joke with you. The mutant's round body was pressed against the ground. Its tongue was hanging out of its mouth, swinging around. It's the master who asked me to help you. Let go of me. Release me. If you trample on my cute little head, master will feel sorry for me. Yi Qing Luo. She was really sorry, she totally couldn't see how this thing was cute. Before you call her cute, can you retract that tongue of yours? Master? Yi Qing Luo kicked it. Who is the master you're talking about? Apart from being able to transform into anything in the world, there was actually someone who could form a contract with an ugly monster that had no attack power at all. That person had even allowed this ugly creature with no attacking power to come to the Earth domain to help her. The mutant opened its mouth and said, My master is your good sister, the most beautiful, kind-hearted, and adorable Xiao Yingying. Mo Yuing? Yi Qing Luo was surprised. Mo Yuing actually formed a contract with a mutated beast. But that time in the array designed by the dark forces. Chapter 3766. How did Shadow know I'm here? And even specially asked you to come over? Although she believed the strange beast's words, but Yi Qing Luo still had some doubts. The strange beast rolled one round on the ground and started to chomp on the corpse puppet goo on the ground. That huge mouth seemed to be filled forever. It was making a "gee bang bang" sound as it replied. Yi Qing Luo, Master said that you would definitely need to do some sneaky things in the Earth boundary, and I'm the best tool for that, so he sent me over to help you. As it spoke, its tongue flicked around. The densely packed corpse puppet goo were still crawling around in its mouth. Yi Qing Luo had goosebumps all over her body. Although this strange beast didn't have much attack power, but its ability to eat worms was still quite strong. Most importantly, after the strange beast finished eating the corpse puppet goo, there was no reaction at all. It seemed like it had been eaten. Those corpse puppet goo had completely disappeared. Moreover, when the corpse puppet goo climbed onto the strange beast's body and tried to swallow it. But, no matter how they climbed onto the strange beast's body, or they would be slippery and fall down. Or they couldn't even bite into it. Slippery, round and bulging. The corpse puppet goo couldn't do anything to the strange beast. Especially now, after the strange beast drilled out from the ground. Not sure if it had destroyed the array. Or destroyed the connection between the corpse puppet goo and the goo master. These corpse puppet goo were scurrying around without any order at all. This caused the mutant to be extremely happy as it ate. To it. Although these corpse puppet goo ate corpses and had been nurtured until now. But in any case, it was still meat. As long as it was meat, it would be its favorite. Looking at the strange beast eating till its mouth was black. Yi Qing Luo didn't even want to take another look at it. Shadow sent you over. How did you find me here? And you even know how to dig a hole in the ground? The strange beast shook its tongue and replied, Master said Master asked me to dig a hole in the ground, Shadow? Shadow knew she was trapped in the auction? And specially asked the strange beast to dig a hole in the ground? And linked it to the strange beast. That could eat the corpse puppet goo. Shadow, did she know something? Then, how about her? Yi Qing Luo asked. Master didn't come here. He just told me to. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips, and after listening to the first half of her sentence, she couldn't be bothered to listen to the second half. She looked in all directions at the insects covering the ground and interrupted its words. You came just in time. There are too many corpse puppet goo here. Since you like to eat them all. The appearance of the strange beast made Yi Qing Luo's side much more relaxed. However, it was still somewhat difficult for the other profound practitioners. Especially, the corpse puppet parasites that had lost their order. Although it was easier to deal with them, it was also not easy. But it was still easier than dealing with the waves of orderly attacks from before. However, these corpse puppet goo were crawling all over the place. There was less pressure to deal with it. However, the frequency of attacks was much higher. If he was careless, a corpse puppet goo might crawl into his body. The strange beast heard Yi Qing Luo's words. His swinging tongue immediately stopped. It was as if he was frightened. After a long time, it swayed its tongue and said, Master, I knew you wanted to kill me. So he specially asked me to bring a helper. Its words had just ended. Suddenly its body fell. Its bloody mouth was facing the sky. An extremely strange cry came out from its mouth. Chapter 3767. As the cries of the strange beast grew louder, that straight tongue formed the vibrations of the sound waves, twisting and turning. Following that, the ground suddenly shook. The ground was like a ripple, rolling over. One round after another. The ripples were getting faster and faster. Everyone's gaze was focused on that direction. Swoosh, 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 the sound of something breaking through the ground was heard. Immediately following that, in the huge hole in the ground, countless round and slippery mutant beasts crawled out of the hole. They only had a bloody mouth on their surface. These strange beasts were the size of a huge rock. In an instant, they occupied a third of the auction venue. Yi Qing Luo estimated that there were at least 50 over. Strange beasts. Hey, ugly monster. Yi Qing Luo looked at the complacent strange beast in front of her. The corners of her mouth twitched. You. Where did you get so many strange beasts? Don't ask her how she could see the complacent expression of the strange beast from its mouth. Anyway, she could see it. The strange beast instantly exploded, its tongue flicked, expressing its anger. Master gave me a name. I am called Chio Chio, not ugly monster. Chio Chio. This name was too cute, really not suitable to be used on a strange beast. You need our help now. Treat me better. If you make me unhappy, I will not help you deal with those disgusting bugs. The strange beast snorted arrogantly. Yi Qing Luo glanced at it. Looking at its bloody mouth, which was filled with corpse puppet goo, Zhang Xian felt a chill run down his spine. If it was disgusting, was there a need to keep eating it? Furthermore, he was eating so noisily. It was obvious that he was enjoying the food. Let me tell you. Master said, as long as I bring a bunch of brothers over to help you, you will be in charge of our meat. We are carnivores. We want to eat meat. The strange beast stuck out its tongue again. The robotic voice shook Yi Qing Luo's ears to the point of pain. Stop the nonsense, since you're here, hurry up and start eating. Let's finish eating these worms first. Yi Qing Luo lifted her leg and kicked it towards the direction where the corpse puppet parasites were. Chio rolled around in a circle and muttered a few words. It obediently called out to the other mutated beasts and started to feast on the corpse puppet goo. The profounders from the various powers were dumbfounded as they stared at the sudden reversal of the situation. More than 50 mutated beasts appeared. They finally had time to catch their breath and rest. The two executive elders put down their weapons and sat on the ground, sweating profusely. Madam, thank you so much. You've saved everyone again. The profound practitioners of the various major powers immediately expressed their gratitude. Yiqing Luo waved her hand. You don't have to thank me, it's the contribution of these strange beasts. After this matter is over, it's enough for you to treat these strange beasts well. The executive elder and the profound practitioners of the various great forces nodded repeatedly. Well said, well said. As long as I can leave this damned place alive. What was the point of taking out some meat to entertain these aberrations? As long as these strange beasts could protect their lives. Even if they had to eat till they were poor, they were willing. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept across the surroundings and finally landed on the direction of the black hole which the strange beasts had drilled out from. Chapter 3768. Ah Luo. Xiao Yinyan frowned as he called out to Yiqing Luo, it's too dangerous for you to go alone. With Azure Dragon around, I'll be fine. Yiqing Luo smiled at him. Pei Xing's dark golden eyes flashed. He didn't agree with Pei Xing's suggestion. Luo, Brother Qiao is right. The Palace of Darkness is too cunning. No one knows what kind of strange things will appear in the next second. Even with Azure Dragon, it is still too dangerous. Yiqing Luo knew that they were worried about her. At this critical juncture, acting alone was simply an act of courting death. But she had to find the eye of the array as soon as possible and crack this array. She could feel that following the appearance of the corpse puppet goo. The atmosphere of the entire auction was getting gloomier and gloomier. As if every breath was filled with cold air. The reason why the cultivators from the major forces had yet to notice was because they were experiencing a life and death battle and were drenched in sweat. When they relaxed a little, Yi Zichen this cold and evil Yin Qi would definitely corrode them. Moreover, Yiqing Luo's vision slowly looked towards the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. Her charming eyes were filled with a trace of hazy tenderness. Ah Xian is still fighting for me, I also want to do something, at least when he returns in triumph. I can go home with him. Her voice was very gentle. When she mentioned Ah Xian, her eyes were filled with deep affection. Everyone was stunned by these words. Pei Xing was the first to compromise, then. Ah Luo, you have to be careful. I will. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up as she replied with a sweet smile. Just as she was about to walk towards Azure Dragon, a hand was placed in front of Yiqing Luo. Xiao Yinyan's expression was grave, his deep eyes stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. His silver hair, slapped on his face, made his expression look somewhat unreal. He opened his mouth. Ah Luo, if you insist on going, I'll accompany her. Xiao Yinyan hadn't finished his words. A voice that was as cold as ice interrupted his words. That voice was very light. But it was filled with unquestionable courage. He had effortlessly suppressed Xiao Yinyan's imposing manner. Xiao Yinyan pursed his lips, his face ashen as he looked in the direction of the voice. What is the meaning of this, Pavilion Master? I'll accompany her. It's safer than you. Zhu Wuxin's expression was indifferent. Xiao Yinyan gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He was indignant, but he couldn't refute this fact. Yiqing Luo saw the atmosphere between the both of them getting fiercer and fiercer as she hurriedly coughed lightly. Then let's do it this way, we'll go investigate the surrounding situation first. Be careful and don't let your guard down. She didn't allow Xiao Yinyan and the others to follow her. He was worried that the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would come up with some sinister tricks. With the Azure Dragon's protection, she was not afraid. However, she could not guarantee Xiao Yinyan's safety. However, Chu Wuxin was different. putting aside the fact that Zhu Wuxin's strength was clearly not much different from the palace master behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness. Otherwise, there would not be the talk of working together. And then there was Zhu Wuxin. In any case, no matter what she said, she would not be able to persuade Zhu Wuxin. In that case, he would just let him follow. After exhorting a few words, Yiqing Luo kept Shiju into the pet space as she flipped over and leapt onto the back of the azure dragon, which had transformed into a normal size, flying towards the front. Zhu Wuxin leapt up and stood on the back of the azure dragon. The azure dragon's tail moved, as though it wanted to slap him away. Chapter 3769. The azure dragon exhaled and did not continue to use its tail to torment Zhu Wuxin. With two people on his back, he turned into a streak of blue light and disappeared before everyone's eyes. After a few twists and turns in the auction, the towering and magnificent buildings had already collapsed and turned into a pile of ruins. The eaves were crushed, and the beams and pillars of the house fell to the ground. Yiqing Luo had been flying one round in the skies above the auction, as she took a look at the auction as a whole. She raised her head and looked at the barrier above her head. He approached the edge of the formation from a close distance. Yiqing Luo could see it clearly. About 20 meters above the auction, there was a transparent barrier that looked like rippling water. Indistinctly, one could see the rampaging black gas twining around them. As Azure Dragon carried Yiqing Luo on his back and neared them, that black chi actually turned into a huge ferocious beast as it opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Yiqing Luo. That stance seemed as though it wanted to swallow Yiqing Luo into its stomach. There was a barrier between them. Yiqing Luo could feel the yin chi rushing towards her. But Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to evade when that black chi opened its bloody mouth. She quietly raised her head and watched the bloody mouth descend. He looked calm and indifferent. Even the expression in his eyes did not change at all. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxian's brows creased as he gave a low rebuke in displeasure, speedily approaching Yiqing Luo as he stretched out his hand in an attempt to pull her away. But in the next instant, the black gas that had formed a bloody mouth smashed into the barrier of the formation. Instantly, it turned into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared. Zhu Wuxin's outstretched hand stiffened. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as she slapped Zhu Wuxian's hand away. "We're in the array, she can't enter." Zhu Wuxin's eyes flickered, and he withdrew his hand. "I need to find the core of this formation and break it." Yiqing Luo took another look at the transparent profound wave above her head as she pursed her lips slightly. "Zhu Wuxian, towards the Palace of Seclusion, you're more familiar with it. What do you think this array is?" Zhu Wuxin's eyes were still lowered, staring at his retracted hand in a daze. Hearing Yiqing Luo's question, he suddenly raised his head. A pair of jet black icy cold eyes directly met with Yiqing Luo's eyes. He was stunned for a moment. Until Yiqing Luo repeated the question. Only then did Zhu Wuxin move his thin lips and say calmly, "I am only cooperating with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness for a certain purpose, but I do not know much about the Palace of Gloomy Darkness." He paused and seemed to have thought of something as he stared at Yiqing Luo and spoke in an extremely serious tone. "I'm working together with the Palace of Darkness, but it doesn't mean that I'm doing things in the same way as them. Towards the Palace of Darkness, I despise the insidious tricks they play in the dark." Yiqing Luo. She was slightly shocked by Zhu Wuxian's serious explanation. She expressed that she only thought that Zhu Wuxin was knowledgeable and would know the name of this formation. He didn't think too much about it. Zhu Wuxin had actually imagined so much. Wouldn't it be a little too embarrassing? Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she replied, "I'm just asking casually. Since you don't know, let's check again and find the array eye first." Without waiting for Zhu Wuxin's reply, Yiqing Luo had already made the green dragon fly downwards. It circled around the huge rock ruins for half a round or so. Yiqing Luo suddenly called out to the green dragon. She lowered her head as she looked at a certain spot below. That pair of narrow long charming eyes were sparkling brilliantly, like the brilliance of the sun and moon, dazzling and eye-catching. Yi Qing Luo suddenly raised her hand. The glower flame fan in her hands suddenly opened up. Chapter 3770. The glower flame fan instantly rotated as it floated above Yi Qing Luo's palm. She raised the other hand as profound energy enveloped her palm and injected it into the glower flame fan. The glower flame fan rotated faster and faster. All of a sudden, it turned into a sharp blade and charged towards a certain direction on the ground. The force of the dive was extremely strong. The bewitching red glow was extremely dazzling. The majestic profound energy also revolved around the glower flame fan, which created a hurricane. Bam! The glower flame fan landed heavily on the ground. A deafening explosion was heard, accompanied by the shaking of the earth and mountains. Between the shattered rocks, a huge deep pit was blasted out at a certain place. The remaining profound cheese might was still wantonly spreading. Billowing dust obscured everything in front of them. The green dragon was nearer to the ground. Dust and shattered rocks flew all over Yi Qing Luo and Zhu Wu Xian's faces. Zhu Wu Xian flicked his sleeves as he shook off the aftermath in front of him. He frowned as his cold eyes swept towards Yi Qing Luo. Towards Yi Qing Luo's actions, he was extremely puzzled. But he didn't ask the reason why Yi Qing Luo did this. He only pursed his lips tightly as he stared at Yi Qing Luo, waiting for her next move. Yi Qing Luo didn't have any intention to dodge the flying shattered rocks and dust. Instead she leapt upwards. Leaping down from the green dragon's back. She headed towards that deep pit which was shaking with the remaining might. She quickly stopped on a huge rock which was about to collapse and fall into the deep pit. The huge rock swayed slightly as it fell a little towards the deep pit. Even the surface of the huge rock had a few cracks on it. Yi Qing Luo carefully nudged her feet as she neared the huge pit. When the green dragon saw this, it immediately charged down and circled around Yi Qing Luo's side, protecting her at all times. Zhu Wu Xian, who was standing on the green dragon's back, was also brought over by the green dragon. He took a look at Yi Qing Luo's careful look as she stood on the huge rock. In his icy cold eyes, an undetectable glint flashed past. Pursing his thin lips tightly, his brows rose slightly. He suddenly leapt up from the green dragon's back. His figure was light as he landed beside Yi Qing Luo. The huge rock which was suspended in mid-air was originally unstable as it swayed and hung by the side of the huge pit. Zhu Wuxin approached. Suddenly, the boulder lost its balance and fell into the pit. When the boulder shook, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but stared fiercely at Zhu Wu Xian. Just as the boulder was about to collapse, he leaped up. Just as he landed, he stepped on another boulder. Zhu Wuxin's body suddenly pressed closer. His hand stretched out directly as he clasped onto Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. Then, the other hand wrapped around her. It was as if he wanted to pull her into his arms. Zhu Wu Xian. Yi Qing Luo was stunned by Zhu Wu Xian's actions. As he stretched out his other hand, she immediately raised her hand and blocked Zhu Wuxin's wrist. "Let go. I'll support you, so there's no need for you to stand." Zhu Wu Xian's cold eyes met her eyes and explained. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. "I don't need it." Zhu Wuxin's expression did not change. "Why do you like rejecting me so much?" "I don't have the energy to stay here and discuss this topic with you." Yi Qing Luo pushed his hand away from her shoulder. "I only want to find the direction of the erase eye and find the witch Gu master who is controlling the corpse puppet Gu, then wait for Xian's victorious return and leave with him. As for the rest, I don't want to." After she pushed Zhu Wu Xian away, her figure flashed as she speedily stepped onto another piece of more dangerous huge rock. But she staggered extremely. Chapter 3771. Zhu Wu Xian fixed his eyes on her petite figure as he tried his best to maintain his balance. His expression sunk slightly as the chill in his eyes grew even more. Yi Qing Luo felt his icy cold gaze. But she didn't want to give any response. Zhu Wuxian's stubbornness had already seeped deep into his bone marrow. Even if she rejected him explicitly, Zhu Wuxian wouldn't listen to her. So she couldn't be bothered to emphasize that she wouldn't accept any feelings from him. Actions to prove it was the real proof. Yi Qing Luo concealed the emotions in her eyes as she refocused her attention on the deep pit. The remnant mite was still vibrating. The rolling airwaves and dust made the entire deep pit look hazy. She stretched out her slender white wrist towards the deep pit. Her 5 fingers opened up. Swoosh, a sound that cut through the air was heard. A fiery remnant shadow flashed past and landed into Yi Qing Luo's palm. It was the glower flame fan. Yi Qing Luo held the glower flame fan as her profound energy burst forth. Immediately after, it swept up a hurricane as it charged into the deep pit. The surrounding remnant mite and the billowing dust were all lingering in the hurricane. The situation in the deep pit. It was clearly reflected in Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Yi Qing Luo bent over slightly as she looked into the deep pit. The spacious and long deep pit was filled with shattered rocks. What are you looking for? Zhu Wuxian stood in the air as he stood behind her, his brows creased slightly. Yi Qing Luo didn't reply as her gaze swiftly wandered among the shattered rocks. Suddenly, her gaze stopped at a certain spot. Her lips curled as she laughed softly, found it. Immediately after, she leapt up and stepped into the deep pit. Zhu Wuxian followed closely behind. Yi Qing Luo used her profound energy to carve out a path among the shattered rocks. Zhu Wuxian then saw that under the shattered rocks, a broken black vine was revealed. That vine was different from ordinary vines. The surface of the vine was covered with layers of sharp thorns. And densely packed, big and small holes occupied the entire vine. It was faintly mixed with strands of evil qi. This is... Zhu Wuxian frowned slightly when he saw the vine. He sensed an extremely uncomfortable feeling from the vines. A goo master's medium to control the corpse puppet goo. Yi Qing Luo stared at the vine for a long time, as she opened her mouth with a grave expression. The witchcraft master used this vine to control thousands of corpse puppet goo, which means to say, by following this vine, we will be able to find the witchcraft master. She paused and looked at the other end, at the vines that were still in the rock wall, and said, this place might be the core of the formation. When Zhu Wuxian heard that, he looked at Yi Qing Luo's expression as it gradually turned gentle. A pair of cold eyes stared deeply at Yi Qing Luo. For some reason, Yi Qing Luo had a strange feeling being stared at by him. Just like, because her analysis made him feel very satisfied. This thought had just flashed across his mind. Then, Zhu Wuxin asked, how did you discover this place? Yi Qing Luo replied, because of the mutated beast. Based on the direction in which the aberration beast emerged, as well as the fluctuations from the aberration beast, as well as the terrain of the auction, I was able to deduce its location. She narrowed her eyes. The expression on her face was slightly solemn and cold. Let's hurry up and find the witchcraft master and the array core, to settle the auction. As Yi Qing Luo said that, she tried to use her profound energy to touch that vine. However, before his dark force came into contact with the vines, Zhu Wuxian seemed to have sensed something as his expression suddenly turned cold. He swiftly stretched out his hand, trying to pull Yi Qing Luo to his side. Chapter 3772. Under the deep pit, the dark light swept out and illuminated the entire space. Yi Qing Luo felt a strong suction force, causing her red robe and black hair to curl up wildly. She could even feel an extremely dangerous aura rapidly spreading towards her. Danger. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled violently. She didn't even have time to turn back. Meanwhile, Zhu Wuxin's hand reached out to her. Yi Qing Luo had no chance to hesitate. She quickly stretched out her hand towards Zhu Wuxin's palm. She had to get rid of this terrifying suction force. However, her hand had yet to approach Zhu Wuxin. That terrifying suction force instantly swallowed her whole body. The azure dragon instantly turned into a ray of green light and returned to Yiqing Luo's pet space. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian sped up, wanting to rush into the whirlpool together with her. But when Yiqing Luo's figure disappeared into the whirlpool black hole, the vortex quickly turned into a bolt of lightning. With a flash, it disappeared into thin air. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes were cold and sharp as he raised his palm, pushing it towards the direction where the whirlpool had disappeared. The ice-cold aura seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth. At this moment, the broken vines that had lost all signs of life suddenly seemed to have received some kind of order. When Zhu Wu Xian wasn't paying attention, suddenly, it charged towards Zhu Wu Xian's direction and wrapped around him. The vines were extremely fast. The vines were densely packed with small holes, and dense evil energy seeped out. They were like open mouths that wanted to swallow Zhu Wuxin. Scram! Zhu Wu Xian was anxious, his expression as cold as ice. When the vines got close, he waved his sleeves and split the vines apart. The vines were torn apart and hung limply on the gravel. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes sunk gloomily. Because he had witnessed Yiqing Luo disappearing right in front of his eyes, he was vexed and infuriated, making him unable to vent the anger in his heart. Suddenly, the words that Yiqing Luo said earlier rang in his mind. His cold eyes narrowed slightly, and his killing intent immediately manifested. Dark Nether Palace. Dark Nether Palace. Yiqing Luo had mentioned before that this vine was most probably the medium for the witchcraft master to control the corpse puppet Gu. It was also the direction of the eye of the formation. Since the Abyss Palace dared to hurt Yiqing Luo, then, he would destroy the plan of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. He was determined to break this array formation. The coldness in Zhu Wu Xian's eyes was like a storm on a snowy mountain, sweeping through his pupils. He stared at the vine and slowly walked towards it. Suddenly, a shrill, sinister, and trembling voice rang out. Young Master Chu, please show mercy. Zhu Wuxin's footsteps halted. The source of the sound was the vine. He lowered his cold eyes and looked at the vine. The vine swayed its long and thin branches and said with a flattering smile, Young Master Chu and the Palace of Gloomy Shadows used to be partners. There's no need to make things so awkward for such a small matter. Zhu Wuxin did not say anything. He was probably used to Zhu Wuxin's indifference. The vine continued, as long as young Master Chu is an outsider and doesn't interfere in this matter, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness promises to do anything for young Master Chu unconditionally. Zhu Wuxin raised his eyes slightly and in his eyes, there was a glimmer. The vine naturally detected Zhu Wuxin's change and immediately laughed. Young Master Chu has worked together with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness for many years, so you should understand the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Since this is the condition that we have promised to young Master Chu, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness will definitely abide by it. After a long time. Chapter 3773. The person on the other end of the vine was startled by the long silence and felt his hair stand on end. Not getting an answer, he coughed lightly to break the deadlock. Young Patriarch Chu, what do you think? Heh. A light laugh, like a cold wind brushing past one's face. Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips curled into an extremely faint cold arc. His jet-black pupils were deep and icy cold, encircling layers of storms. He laughed. His laughter was icy cold. It made one's heart turn cold. On the other side, Yiqing Luo was being sucked by that terrifying suction force as she felt the world spinning around her. Following that, she was thrown heavily onto the ground. The impact force made her frown in pain. She hadn't reacted in time to what was going on. Suddenly, a strong sense of danger gushed out from the bottom of her heart. It was almost her body's instinct. Yiqing Luo slapped the ground fiercely. Her body quickly rolled a few rounds on the ground. The intense pain on her body intensified. And boiling hot blood, seeping out from her wound. But she didn't have time to check on her wound. The place where she was at earlier. A burst of energy which seemed to be able to destroy the heaven and earth came crashing down. Even though she had avoided that burst of energy, Yiqing Luo was still unable to avoid the remnant energy as she flew out once again. The moment her body rose into the sky, Yiqing Luo swiftly circulated her profound jade heart and used her profound energy to drag her body, preventing her body from crashing onto the ground once again, causing her wound to worsen. What made her most surprised was that valiant energy which made one appalled. When she crashed onto the ground wasn't damaged at all. Profound light flashed and swept past. Then it dissipated in front of her eyes. What on earth was going on? That burst of boundless profound energy that was so strong that even her breathing felt oppressive. It absolutely couldn't be faked. And that intimidating remnant energy, she could feel it clearly. But why wasn't there any impact on the surrounding environment at all? Her slender brows creased tightly. Just as she was about to raise her head and look towards the direction where the energy came from. Suddenly, a panicked and worried voice sounded beside his ear, "Lil Luo'er?" Yiqing Luo's body suddenly stiffened. She quickly propped herself up and looked towards the direction where she was called. What she saw was the man's imposing figure standing in the air. The man's purple robe danced wildly in the strong wind. His sleeves fluttered like rolling purple clouds, surging with hidden storms. The sky was filled with dark radiance and flowing lights. It made the man look like a deity. His peerless face was filled with worry. His almond-shaped eyes stared at her without blinking. His brows were filled with worry and anxiety. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. "Ah Xian?" Why did she see Ah Xian? Didn't Ah Xian go to the space of consciousness to fight with that person called Yuzun? Wait a minute. Space of consciousness? Yiqing Luo's slender fingers trembled slightly. Suddenly, she stood up abruptly and took 2 steps back. She staggered a little. Where she was now, it was a place like the vast starry sky of the universe. There was nothing else in all directions. His dark force swept around him. Yiqing Luo understood. She is now, it was sucked into the space of Dmo Xian's consciousness. It was no wonder that the earth-shattering power had disappeared the moment it hit the ground. Because, this was the space of consciousness. Why was she sucked into Dmo Xian's space of consciousness? One could it be? A thought flashed past Yiqing Luo's mind. Chapter 3774. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian's anxious growl was heard beside her ear. Yiqing Luo saw Dmo Xian's purple figure from the corner of her eye, closing in on her speedily. She realized something. But with her own speed, she had no way to react. Immediately following that, a gust of sinister wind closed in from behind. A hand clasped onto her shoulder. The violent and terrifying pressure made her chest feel stuffy as a mouthful of blood spilled out from the corner of her lips. A thick blood stench filled Yiqing Luo's nose. She couldn't tell if it was the blood stench on her. Or was it from the person behind her who was holding her neck tightly, emitting a bloody stench. It was so thick as though someone had poured a large bowl of thick blood into her throat. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian's pupils constricted as he roared. Violent profound energy shot out, turning into thousands of layers of huge waves, attacking Yiqing Luo's back. Overlord. Above her head, a slightly anxious and gloomy voice was heard. Following that, Yiqing Luo felt the force on her neck increasing. A tyrannical and terrifying aura pervaded her surroundings. As though hell was beckoning to her. If you dare to move, I'll bring her along to hell. The gloomy voice was filled with a probing threat. Yiqing Luo's neck was forced to tilt backwards. She gave a dull moan as her slender brows creased into a bundle. From this angle, she was coincidentally able to see that person's face behind her clearly. It was Yuzun. Only, the current Yuzun was totally not as energetic as before when he appeared at the auction. The brocade robe on him had several holes in it. His hair, which was originally neat and tidy, also fell down, baring his teeth and brandishing his claws. His face was pale and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely disheveled. Apparently, it was a battle with Dmo Xian in this consciousness space. Dmo Xian had the upper hand. Oh! Her neck suddenly tightened. The icy cold prickling pain made her moan in pain. At the same time, the violent profound energy which surged over instantly stopped. The man's furious growl was heard, Yuzun. Ha ha ha. Yuzun held on to Yiqing Luo as he laughed. Have you ever thought that you would have such a day? Ha ha ha. The probing had gotten the result. Holding on to Yiqing Luo as a bargaining chip. Yuzun was completely fearless. Not long ago, a dignified venerable emperor actually had a weakness. Ha ha ha. Let her go. Dmo Xian stared intently at Yiqing Luo. The worry in his eyes was not concealed at all. Looking at Yiqing Luo's pale face and her entire body covered in blood. His heart felt like it was being pricked by a needle. There seemed to be something in his body that was slowly eroding away at him. Even breathing had become extremely difficult. Yiqing Luo was suffering. He felt even more pain. TSK. Dizun, with your intelligence, shouldn't you pretend that you don't care about this woman and take the opportunity to save her? After revered Lord had his trump card, the humiliation he had suffered in Dmo Xian's hands earlier seemed as though he could get it back. He clasped Yiqing Luo's neck tightly as he laughed wildly. Exposing your weakness to the enemy is a huge taboo. Yiqing Luo forced herself not to reveal a painful expression to make Dmo Xian worried. She knew that it was impossible for Dmo Xian to do what revered Lord said. Because Dmo Xian was unable to gamble with her safety. He would rather let others know about her weakness, to use it to threaten him. He couldn't bear to let her suffer any harm. Only by letting revered Lord know that she was a threat to him. Chapter 3775. Revered Lord, what do you want? Dmo Xian's gaze was chilly as he stared at the hand which was clutching Yiqing Luo's neck as he said word by word, let go of her. What do you want? I'll listen to you. When revered Lord heard that, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. In this case, you're letting me deal with you because of this woman, right? Yes. Dmo Xian replied straightforwardly. Then. I want you, the esteemed overlord, to kneel in front of me and admit that I, revered Lord, am the only revered Lord in this world. Revered Lord laughed sinisterly as he lowered his head and looked at Yiqing Luo who was being restrained by him. Young lady, what do you think of this request? Yiqing Luo's neck was forced backwards as her pair of charming eyes stared fiercely at revered Lord as she gritted her teeth. Pooey. If you have the ability, try and make a move on me. Ha ha ha, young lady, before I die, I'll bring the person whom he treasures the most into hell. Seeing him in pain, it's not a loss for me. Revered Lord laughed sinisterly as he got closer to Yiqing Luo's face. Young lady, don't try to agitate me. She felt the man's breath spraying down. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows in disgust as she sneered, not a loss. I'm merely a nobody and you. If you die, all your glory will vanish into thin air. Moreover, you, revered Lord, in the world's gossip, will forever be my Xian's defeated opponent. Perhaps it was her last sentence which agitated revered Lord. Revered Lord's expression suddenly turned steely green. His hands suddenly clasped tightly onto her slender shoulder. His fingers seemed as though he was going to break her bones. It was so painful that Yiqing Luo's face turned pale as sweat started to form on her forehead. What a sharp-tongued lass. Revered Lord's other hand locked onto her chin. I really want to teach this mouth of yours a lesson. Yiqing Luo was in pain from being pinched, but her eyes were still filled with ridicule. Just make your move. Let's see if your speed is faster or Xian's speed is faster. Revered Lord's steely green face instantly turned into a gloomy cloud. He fiercely shook Yiqing Luo's chin away, not even wanting to say a word to her. His face turned black as he looked at Dmo Xian as he spoke sinisterly. The woman you find is the same as you, disgusting. As he spoke, his rather handsome face contorted into a deformed expression. Dizun, have you thought it through? Do you want to save your face and lose the woman you love, or do you want to kneel in front of me for the woman you love? Dmo Xian's gaze had always been on Yiqing Luo's. That pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes seemed to contain infinite tenderness. Yiqing Luo saw the meaning in his eyes and her expression changed slightly. Ah Xian, I don't allow you to do this. Even if you do it, he won't let me go. Dmo Xian curled his thin lips at her, as if he was comforting her. Then, when he raised his eyes to look at the dark prime, his entire aura underwent a complete change. His gaze was awe-inspiring, and his aura was terrifying. Word by word, he spat out from his lips, if you keep your word, I will agree to your request. Ha. Ha ha ha. When Nether Prime heard this answer, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He looked at Dmo Xian as though he was looking at an idiot. Do you know, if a strong practitioner has a soft spot, what's the consequence? His voice was filled with complacency. Now, I'll tell you, what's the consequence? Nether Prime laughed sinisterly as he leapt up, charging towards Dmo Xian. Chapter 3776. Dmo Xian was just about to make his move. Yuzun's complacent voice rang out, don't try to resist. If this palm doesn't land on you, then, your beloved woman will bear it for you. Dmo Xian's figure was completely rooted to the ground. Dark Venerable. Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted as she gritted her teeth and roared out Yuzun's name. Ah Xian, don't bother about me. I want to see if he really dares to make a move against me. She bet that he wouldn't dare. Once he made a move, Dmo Xian would not hesitate to make his move. The Nether Prime could at most only use her to delay the time of this battle. But, bang, that palm landed squarely on Dmo Xian's shoulder. Dmo Xian was forced to retreat several steps. When he regained his balance, the corner of his lips was slightly pale, and a trace of blood flowed out. That shade of red pierced Yiqing Luo's eyes. That palm landed on Dmo Xian's body. It was like a blow to her heart. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. A surge of blood kept surging in his chest, as if it would gush out from his throat at any moment. It was all because of her. It was all because of her. That was why Dmo Xian was controlled by others. He already had a foolproof plan in his mind. She was almost 80% sure that the Dark Lord wouldn't dare to make a move against her. But Dmo Xian cared about her. Because he cared. He dared not gamble with her. Therefore, he would rather bear this palm strike himself. Ah Xian. Looking at Dmo Xian, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, Yiqing Luo's voice was choked. She looked at Dmo Xian. Tears welled up in his eyes. The blood that was surging in his chest. It made her throat feel fishy and sweet. Ah Xian. Ah Xian, ah Xian, she had clearly instructed him not to let himself get hurt for her sake. But now, it was for her, he endured the Dark Lord's humiliation. Her ah Xian. How could he allow others to humiliate him? Dmo Xian smirked at her, his smile was very faint. However, the gentleness and love in his eyes were still as deep as ever. This smile made Yiqing Luo's eyelashes wet with a layer of mist. Her drooping black hair covered her eyes, which were gradually turning red. The aura on his body was also gradually changing. It was a very subtle change. Ha ha ha, Dmo Xian. This is the price to pay for having a soft spot. Yuzun laughed in satisfaction. Looking at Dmo Xian's swaying body, he felt extremely carefree in his heart. His heart was filled with the satisfaction of injuring and humiliating Dmo Xian. He didn't notice the changes that were happening to the woman he was holding. To be more precise, to Yuzun. This woman was an ant that he could strangle to death with a flick of his finger. He did not care about her at all, so why would he pay attention to her changes? This woman is really important to you. It was not in vain that I spent so much effort to pull her into the space of your consciousness. Ha ha ha, Dmo Xian. There's more exciting things waiting for you next. Yu Venerable raised his palm. A majestic and tyrannical profound energy, like a hurricane whirlpool, surged in his palm. Along with the Nether Prime's wild laughter. The hurricane grew fiercer and fiercer. The aura of the entire space changed. The hurricane rose abruptly and the vast starry sky in the space seemed to be swept along with the hurricane. This palm, his target, was Dmo Xian's chest. As long as this palm landed. If Dmo Xian didn't die, he would be crippled. When Dmo Xian had no way to retaliate, he would torture Yiqing Luo bit by bit in front of Dmo Xian. Chapter 3777. In his mind, it was as though he had already sketched out a beautiful picture of the future. Revered Lord gave a sinister smile as his eyes were filled with complacency and murderous intent. That palm was aimed directly at Dmo Xian's chest, as it chopped downwards. Dmo Xian's expression changed slightly. When that palm landed, his muscles tensed up. He naturally could tell what Revered Lord was planning. Revered Lord's palm was aimed at the weakest part of his body. As long as he received this palm, his 5 viscera and 6 bowels would probably be severely injured. Earlier when he was in the spirit-devouring array, the injuries to his soul would probably be dragged out. By then, Dmo Xian's eyes turned colder and colder. His brain was working quickly. His injuries were nothing. But if he lost his battle power, Revered Lord would absolutely not keep his promise. He must ensure Lil Luo's safety before he was heavily injured. The violent and ferocious palm filled with murderous intent was already pressing downwards. A glint flashed past Dmo Xian's eyes. He didn't evade this palm. Instead, he faced this palm and stretched out his hand towards the direction where Revered Lord was holding onto Yiqing Luo. Revered Lord was shocked by Dmo Xian's sudden action. Was he crazy? He was prepared to use his own body to forcefully snatch Yiqing Luo from his hands. Revered Lord couldn't understand Dmo Xian's actions. The palm had already landed. If he stuffed Yiqing Luo behind him and avoided Dmo Xian's outstretched hand, that palm which he struck out would definitely be deflected. If this palm was deflected, he would lose control of Dmo Xian. That would give Dmo Xian a chance to turn things around. He couldn't avoid it. Revered Lord's gaze was sinister as his murderous aura intensified. What an infatuated person. I'll fulfill your wish. He wanted to see how Dmo Xian was going to protect Yiqing Luo after being hit by this palm. Everything would proceed according to his plans. The murderous aura in Revered Lord's eyes became more and more intense. His palm was like a hot knife cutting through butter, and his profound energy was like a surging flood. Even the air was intimidated by this energy, and there were traces of electric currents flickering in the air. Boom! A huge explosion reverberated through the entire space. It was accompanied by a shrill scream. But this miserable shriek was not Dmo Xian's voice. Instead, the Nether Prime's face was pale, beads of cold sweat the size of beans rolling down from his forehead. The intense pain eroded his body and mind. It was as if something was rampaging in his body. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels, and even all the bones in his body were smashed to pieces. He opened his mouth in pain and howled miserably. His widened eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. What was going on? Why was everything not going in the direction he had envisioned? Yuzun twisted his head in pain. The tearing pain made him break out in cold sweat. His gaze slowly landed on the source of the pain. His hand was still maintaining the motion of swinging his palm downwards. It was just a finger's distance away from Dmo Xian. But he couldn't swing that palm down for a long time. This was because a slender white hand had grabbed his wrist. All of his strength was locked in that small, slender, white hand. He wanted to move. However, he was suppressed by that small hand and was unable to move at all. From the strength of that small hand which was gripping his wrist. Wave after wave of berserk profound energy followed his wrist and rushed into his body. Like a sharp blade. Chapter 3778. But what shocked him the most was, this slender hand actually belonged to that woman whom he totally disregarded and treated as a hostage, Yiqing Luo. When did she break free from his restraint? And when did she clasp his wrist? He totally didn't feel anything at all. He only knew that at the moment when his palm was about to land on Dmo Xian's chest, turning him into a cripple completely. His wrist was already clasped by Yiqing Luo. Immediately following that, a violent surge of profound energy pressed against his internal organs. And there was a sharp blade, cutting his heart. Traces of profound energy, probing towards his profound jade heart. And he, totally had no room to resist at all. This was impossible. How could she possibly have such a powerful energy? If there was such a powerful energy, how could he possibly not sense it? Could it be Dmo Xian's doing? Yuzun, who was in extreme pain, stared fiercely at Dmo Xian. But he saw Dmo Xian's expression was slightly stunned as his brows creased tightly, looking at Yiqing Luo in bewilderment. As though he was shocked by the energy that Yiqing Luo had unleashed. "My man, you dare to touch him?" The young lady's cold voice seemed to be covered with frost. A pair of blood-red eyes surged with ice-cold monstrous waves. Her 5 fingers suddenly tightened. "It's this hand that injured my man." A "kacha" sound was heard. Yuzun's right hand was broken by Yiqing Luo barehandedly. Yiqing Luo raised her leg and kicked Yuzun's chest fiercely. Yuzun flew backwards, falling under the vast starry sky. He cried out in pain, hugging his broken arm as he rolled around. Blood kept seeping out, dyeing his robe red. The young lady stood in the air. Her flamboyant red robe was like a dazzling poppy, flamboyant and eye-catching. The strong wind danced wildly, blowing against her fine black hair. The young lady's face was devastatingly beautiful, her brows were sharp and stern. Her enchanting eyes were filled with the world's coldest ice. As though it was just a glance. Then it would be frozen into frost. Flamboyant, peerlessly beautiful. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian stared intently at Yiqing Luo, as his peach blossom eyes sparkled. The girl in front of him. Just like his little Luo heir. However, there seemed to be something different. It was a breathtaking aura. Even he felt a trace of pressure. Perhaps it heard his voice. The girl slowly glanced over. At this moment, her beautiful face, which could topple cities, seemed to melt like snow. Her long and narrow eyes, which were dyed red, seemed to be dotted with a myriad of spring waters, like peach blossoms. She smiled at him. Her smile was beautiful and captivating. Her red eyes were enchanting and charming. Dmo Xian's brows gradually softened. This was his little Luo heir. No matter what her current situation was. However, her soul was still Lil Luo, You did it on purpose. You did it on purpose? The Nether Prime's voice broke the sweetness between the two of them. He staggered to his feet. He was in an extremely sorry state. He stared deadly at Yiqing Luo, as though he wanted to slice her into 1,000 pieces. Yiqing Luo's gaze shifted back onto Yuzun. The coldness and contempt in his eyes were extremely clear. As though he was mocking Yuzun for overestimating his own ability. She leapt upwards. The fiery red long robe was like a raging fire, blossoming brilliantly in the sky, weaving streaks of colorful clouds. A majestic aura, as though it could stir the 9 heavens, burst forth from her body. So powerful that Chapter 3779. Venerable's pupils constricted as disbelief and fear surged beneath his eyes. You're not Yi Qing Luo. Oh. The young lady's pink lips curled slightly as she breathed out a light breath from her nose. Under those cold, sharp, charming eyes, her gaze was cold, noble, and breathtaking. Even Venerable, who was used to killing. When he met the sharp, cold, and frost-like eyes, he felt a chill run down his spine. His throat couldn't help but tighten as his heart felt as though it was being strangled tightly by something. Venerable's heart thumped hard. His heart kept sinking. What was going on? The young lady in front of him still looked the same. But her entire person had undergone an earth-shattering change. If it was in the past, when he looked at Yi Qing Luo, he only felt that this young lady had a peerless beauty, but her ability was meager. As long as he moved his finger, he would be able to pull her in easily. But now, the aura that Yi Qing Luo released and the boundless profound energy that she was emitting, all these showed her extraordinariness. Especially in front of the young lady's chest, there seemed to be a ball of blazing flame. The enchanting red glow pierced Venerable's eyes. Even though he couldn't see clearly, the thing under the flame, Venerable was very clear. That was the young lady's profound jade heart which was releasing its power. It could be said. The current Yi Qing Luo. She was totally a strong existence who was on par with him, or even Dmo Xian. He had actually misjudged her. This young lady had concealed herself too well. Venerable. The young lady's clear voice was like an orchid in an empty valley, extremely pleasing to the ears. But that voice was mixed with a chilly intent, making one feel a chill down one's spine. Venerable's heart thumped fiercely again. His heart felt as though it was going to jump out from his throat. He clenched his teeth tightly as he suppressed the heavy pressure in his heart. His vicious eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. 1Dmo Xian. He had already suffered a lot. Moreover, he had long heard that Dmo Xian was injured and his ability was not even half of his peak. He thought that he could take advantage of the situation to stop Dmo Xian. To seek back all the humiliation that he had suffered from Dmo Xian. But he had not expected that even the injured Dmo Xian. He was also not Dmo Xian's opponent. Now with the addition of Yi Qing Luo, who he couldn't see through it all. If he didn't seize the opportunity to kill one of them, he would definitely die. Today, he was most likely doomed. The murderous intent in the Nether Prime's eyes instantly surged intensely. All the dark force in his body was entangled crazily. However, in the face of Lord Yu's vigilance, Yi Qing Luo, who had made up her mind to go all out, didn't even bat an eyelid. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with light, like the twinkling of stars. His eyes were filled with calmness and indifference. He was neither happy nor angry, neither arrogant nor rash. He was emotionless. She said, "There's no need to look at Xiao Xian. I can deal with you alone." She smiled sweetly and her smile was incomparably beautiful. However, there was not a trace of warmth in the depths of her eyes. She lifted her fair and slender hands slowly. A streak of lightning like flowing light danced in her palm. From time to time, there would be crackling sounds. When Yuzun's vision came into contact with the electric current running around in Yi Qing Luo's palm, he staggered back a few steps, as if he had been frightened. Thunderclap incantation. This power. Don't tell me you are. His face alternated between pale white and steely green. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 3780. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as she smiled sweetly. Oh? So you know what this is. Her 5 fingers moved slightly. The flickering electric current started to move faster and faster. The electric current crackled as though it was dipped in poison, icy cold and sinister. She slowly raised her hand. The electric ball in her hand covered the smile on her face. But it couldn't conceal the cold teasing glint in her eyes. Only a dead person can keep a secret, then. I can only kill you. Her tone was indifferent, carrying an irresistible dignity. The murderous intent in her words made Yuzun awaken from his stupor. He pursed his lips tightly as his twisted face was half unwillingness and half astonishment. Suddenly, he pounced towards Yiqing Luo. Monstrous profound energy gathered around his body. That right hand which was broken by Yiqing Luo suddenly stretched out towards her. A black airflow revolved around his broken arm. A piece of white bone suddenly popped out from the broken arm. The tip of the bone was extremely sharp, like a sharp blade, giving off a faint cold glint. On the white bone, there was a sinister chi revolving around it. Yiqing Luo, stop acting mysterious. I'd like to see what kind of waves an ant like you can stir up. Yuzun gritted his teeth as he gave a low growl. He didn't believe that Yiqing Luo had suddenly undergone such a huge change. An ant was an ant. How could he possibly die in the hands of an ant? Lil Luo, Although Dmo Xian knew about Yiqing Luo's current condition, he didn't need to worry. But when he saw Yuzun's attack nearing, his body's instincts had already driven him to fly towards Yiqing Luo. His long arms stretched out as he pulled the young lady into his embrace. With a backhand, he struck out a palm in an attempt to block Yuzun's attack. But before he could even raise his hand, the girl's soft little hand had already rested on his arm, and she slowly pressed his hand down. Tightly, the young lady's one hand encircled his waist. The other hand, which was holding the electric ball, moved slightly. The electric ball in her hand turned into a bolt of lightning as it smashed down from Yuzun's head. The electric current revolved around Yuzun's body. Lightning flashed, emitting sizzling sounds. Oh! The electric current wrapped around the dark prime, causing his entire body to be numb and charred. He fell to the ground, his limbs twitching. The electric current on his body was still faintly visible. Nobody appreciated the Nether Prime's miserable state. After throwing the electric ball, the young girl had already turned her head, a sweet smile hanging on the corner of her mouth. Her pair of charming eyes were also filled with warmth. She wrapped one arm around the man's waist. After throwing the electric ball, she retracted her other hand and placed it on the man's chest. She lifted her eyes and met his gaze. In her star-like eyes, it was as if a pool of spring water had been disturbed, overflowing with youth, enchanting and seductive. My man, you should rest after being injured. The girl's clear and sweet voice was as gentle as water. Suddenly, she wrapped her arms around his neck. She carefully avoided his injured shoulder. Their breaths were very close. The young lady's clear and hoarse voice was filled with a faint smile. "You've protected me for so long. As my man, you should also enjoy the feeling of being protected by me." Dmo Xian's pupils reflected the young lady's devastatingly beautiful looks. Seeing that he didn't speak, Yiqing Luo's gentle smile became even more obvious. She tipped her toes and her moist pink lips imprinted on the man's lips. A very light touch. She pulled the distance between their lips. Then she said, "Be good, listen to me. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."